Hey everyone! Great to be back with you all again. One of the joys of making videos for classic games is the feeling you get from revisiting titles you haven't actually seen or touched in years, and getting to share that experience with others. But in the case of Nintendo's Famicom system, however, it's been a little different, as we're talking about games that a large number of people in the US, myself included, have never actually played or experienced before now. This has led me to discover plenty of hidden gems, and a few duds along the way. And today that journey has brought me to this title, Astro Robo SASA. It revolves around you shooting down targets and collecting energy, while also using said shots to propel your character into the air and guide them around the stage to dodge attacks and reach other targets. Now I know what you're thinking. What? Yes, it's exactly as strange and interesting as it sounds, but what does it feel like to play today? Strap in, and we'll see just how well Astro Robo SASA for the Famicom holds up today. Developed by Works for the Famicom, published by ASCII, and released in 1985, Astro Robo SASA is a physics-based arcade shooter with a focus on collecting energy capsules in order to keep advancing from stage to stage. Originally based off a game simply titled SASA for the MSX1 and various Spectra video home computers, the Famicom version would change the overall look, feel, and level design while also adding in a new character to the mix, Nana. While there's not much here in the way of a story, we know it involves both Sasa and Nana training by gathering energy capsules in order to eventually explore a large black hole. But getting there will be no easy task as you make your way through 16 different stages in order to do so. So what do you actually do in this game? It's a bit of a loaded question, but I'll guide you through it as best I can. Your objective in each stage is to obtain energy tanks, of which you'll see 2 or more of. In order to collect them, you need to move around the screen by shooting. Yes, shooting in this actually propels you in the opposite direction of where you're pointing, including up, down, left, and right. Understanding this simple yet difficult to master mechanic is the key to conquering this game. There are also occasional moments where your character will be able to walk on foot, left and right, though they are very infrequent and can be a bit of a pain since you move much slower in comparison. You'll end up preferring the ricochet blasts far more. Some stages will also allow you to go out one side of the screen and appear from the other, just like in Asteroids and other similar games. Sounds like a wacky premise, right? That's because it is. While I have thought about the idea of using a weapon recoil to propel yourself in video games, I've never seen it used as the game's entire focus before, and Astro Robo SASA deserves some serious credit for coming up with it. The main challenge of the game comes in mastering your character's movement through the ricochet effect and trying to reach energy tanks without running out of energy yourself. Each shot fired takes away 1 point of energy, while getting hit by enemies and obstacles can take away far more, and even render you motionless for a second. Having this happen once or twice is no big deal, but continuous hits can start to drain you of your energy fast. The energy tanks collected will give you 100 energy each, or 250 each if you're playing the 2-player mode. Oh, and it's possible to accidentally shoot and lose the energy tanks, making you go to the next stage automatically with far less energy than you would have otherwise gained. You don't want that. Trust me. Over the course of the game's 16 stages, you are put into some unique situations that'll take some time to get the hang of. While there are some stages that will appear to be duplicates, or at least similar to the ones you've played before, your experience with playing them will not be. For example, in Stage 4, you appear near a warehouse location and have to destroy a wall in order to reach the 3 energy tanks for the stage. But after reaching Stage 5, and despite having the same layout, the level's entire strategy changes due to a slew of helicopter enemies appearing, forcing you to plan a more strategic way around them, whether that's through blasting them for more points, or dodging them altogether while trying to break down the wall. This is also the case for stages 7 through 9, where you now have to maneuver around a more narrow area, which forces you to walk on foot most of the time. On top of this, the enemies in this stage try to pick up and steal your energy tanks. The only way to get them back is to move around and basically wait for the enemy to drop it once again. While moving through a narrow walkway and dodging things like flying bricks, it's easier said than done. As you can see, even in the stages that appear to be repeats of previous ones, there's a unique gameplay scenario to overcome each and every time. And the overall variety in stage design is certainly there. What starts off as you getting a few energy tanks off of some balloons floating in the air, turns into an entire space battle happening around a black hole in the center. Talk about things escalating quickly. Once you've mastered the ins and outs of each stage, you'll realize that the game can be quite short. In fact, if you know exactly what you're doing, it's possible to beat the game in well under 30 minutes. But that's not very likely on your first, second, or even third time trying. Oh no. If you haven't guessed already, the game is extremely difficult in places. It will take you multiple tries to play and replay stages in order to master them and move just a little further forward each time. As this is an older title, there is also no save system here. If you run out of energy, it's game over, and you'll have to start from the beginning. With that said, the difficulty can also be a bit inconsistent in places. For example, I found stages 10 through 12, which revolve around moving underwater, to be far more difficult than any of the stages after it, with the sole exception of the final stage. It's not so easy to describe this without you actually holding the controller in your hands, but in multiple stages, and referring to these water stages especially, the gravity or water current is usually pushing you in a specific direction, making it even harder to aim and hit your targets. In stage 12, for example, you have the current of the water moving you slightly to the right the entire time, forcing you to be extremely precise, all while dodging a seahorse with a projectile shot, and a starfish that, once shot, will turn into 4 smaller versions of itself and move much faster across the screen. This stage ended up being the ultimate test in patience. The 3 stages following these, stages 13 through 15, are by comparison much easier. They have you moving around in space while avoiding some easy-to-dodge meteors and manta ray-like enemies. The only thing that felt disorienting about this stage was going from the water current pushing me to the right to suddenly not being pushed by anything at all once again. But the final stage is where all hell breaks loose. Having a bunch of meteors and manta ray-like enemies spinning around the stage with 4 energy tanks in the corners is difficult on its own. But on top of this, you also have to deal with a small black hole in the middle trying to pull you in. The worst part of it all? If you touch this black hole, you automatically lose all your remaining energy and have to start the game over from the very beginning. That was not a fun thing to find out by accident. On top of avoiding the black hole, the biggest key to surviving this stage is really in how much energy you have left. I confess I had to play through the game at least 7 or 8 times before I managed to come out with enough energy and get to all the tanks in time. After finally accomplishing this task, you see a quick but cute ending screen where Sasa and Nana reunite and make a heart shape out of bullets while riding down on balloons together. And then, you get to do it all over again. Yes, instead of having a credit sequence, the game just puts you back in the first stage with your remaining energy and high score carried over, so you can continue to increase them and get an even higher score. I didn't feel like it personally, but I was very glad to have completed everything all the same. In hindsight, there are many things to like and dislike about this title. The controls themselves are surprisingly tight, with a quick response time to any direction you want to point at, and any single blast or flurry of shots you want to fire. The variety in stage design is also a nice touch, as it helps change up the game's general atmosphere, alongside the additional enemies and challenges. But the learning curve and the trial and error are certainly there. This game is not for the impatient, as it will likely take you multiple attempts just to get a proper feel for how the game works, only to be held back again by the next confusing challenge. It also doesn't help that the 2-player mode will allow you to shoot your partner and cause them to lose energy. But if you can manage it, learn the layouts of each stage, and really stick with it for a couple of hours, you will likely get a lot of enjoyment out of playing this, and working to get just a little bit farther each time. If anything, I'd say it's worth checking out, if simply for the unique nature of the game itself. This is not something you see every day, and I would have loved to see this type of gameplay setup with more modern touches thrown around today. In some ways, Astro Robo SASA really surprised me. I admit, I have no idea why it exists, though I'm very glad that it does. While the graphics were about average for their time, keeping in mind that this came out just 1 month before the original Super Mario Bros. To give a little perspective, the gameplay ended up feeling surprisingly tight once I got the hang of the game's methodology. It's also worth noting that all of the game's text is in English, so anyone importing it should have no issues with playing and understanding it. The difficulty imbalance will no doubt frustrate some gamers, as will the similar-looking stages with only minor tweaks made to each, but I think even they'll still be impressed by how smooth and responsive the controls are today, even if the physics are likely to make them throw things and curse a lot. Check it out if you can. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have you played or heard of this game before yourself? Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw, please consider donating to my Patreon, where awesome people like Brandon, Thomas, Johan, Cielo, Andrew, and Jonathan all help to keep this channel going. Until next time. I really need to start playing easier games. Will I ever do that? Probably not, but I should. But I probably won't. But I should. But I won't.